ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
So, this will be lecture number 38, mechanical measurements. Towards the end of the last lecture, we were looking at the measurement of specific heat capacity or the specific heat of a solid material. We described a calorimeter and we were looking at the principle behind the calorimeter measurement. In fact, in this lecture, I am going to continue with that, and I will take example 44, which was actually spelt out in the last lecture. We will try to solve that problem, and then we will move on to another important measurement, namely the measurement of heat of combustion of either a gaseous, liquid or a solid fuel. So, we will describe two calorimeters, one a continuous flow type calorimeter and the second one is called a bomb calorimeter. So, we will look at these things in the present lecture. So, we will go back to the board and resume at the place where we had left off last time. So, we were looking at the mixing process. During the first phase, we are going to drop the hot mass into the calorimeter vessel, and then we are going to study the temperature variation of the calorimeter. The temperature actually increases steadily, and after some time it has to come to a steady state, and if there are no losses, the steady state temperature should be a constant value higher than the initial value of the temperature. Of course, because of the losses inherent in the system, this is not going to take place. Actually the temperature will start coming down after increasing to a maximum value, and the cooling process subsequent to the heating process or the heat release process is of importance to us to find out what is the loss going to be. In fact, I have derived the expression, the specific heat of the material, in this case the glass beads, equal to capital C into T2 minus T1, where capital C is the heat capacity of the calorimeter itself with its contents, and then the L is the loss, second term on the numerator is the loss term, which needs to be estimated by the cooling process, and the denominator consists of the mass of the glass beads multiplied by the temperature difference, change from the higher temperature to the lower temperature. In fact, the question now is how are you going to estimate the loss, and we will make a simple assumption. Because the temperature difference between the calorimeter and the outer vessel is kept very small, the difference is very small, we can assume that the loss must be proportional to the temperature difference between the T and the jacket. The jacket temperature also happens to be the initial temperature of the entire system. So, we will assume that L, the loss from the calorimeter, is proportional to some constant K times T minus T1. So, now let us see what is the consequence of this. So, the consequence is that during the mixing process, we can write the following equation: dq by dt, the rate at which the heat is changing with respect to time, is actually heat given up by the solid. The rate at which heat is given up by the solid must be equal to the rate at which the calorimeter gains heat, which is given by C dt by dt, rate at which the calorimeter gains heat calorimeter gains heat plus the loss, which I will write as K into T minus T1. The assumption is that this K quantity K I am introducing here as a proportionality constant is the same whether it is getting heated or subsequently it is going to cool. The same constant I am going to use, because the temperature difference T minus T1 is a very small temperature difference. At the most a few degrees. So, what I can do now is to integrate this equation, and if I do that from the start of the heating the mixing process to the end of the mixing process. So, integrate from T equal to 0, that is the starting of the mixing process, to T equal to Te, let us say this is the end of the mixing process. Okay. That means the dq by dt if I integrate T naught T equal to 0 to Te, this should simply give Q, the amount of heat given up by the solid material as it cools from its own temperature, which is higher, to the final terminal temperature. Similarly, if you integrate this, simply this should become C into T2 minus T1. The temperature change, because the integral dt by dt integrate between T equal to 0 and Te will be nothing but T2 minus T1 plus this will give you K into integral 0 to Te T minus T1 dt. Of course, I cannot say anything about this term at the moment. We will come back to this term a little later on, but during the mixing process I have got an equation which says that the heat given up by the solid equal to Q is shared between two quantities. One, the heat gained by the calorimeter in going from temperature T1 to temperature T2, and plus the K times the integral, which is actually nothing but the loss. This is nothing but the loss. Now, let us look at what is going to happen after the mixing process is over. Then subsequently I am going to end up having a cooling process. So, let us look at the data obtained. I have deliberately exaggerated the effect of the heat loss to show the details. Let us look at the data which is obtained is the lower curve with heat loss. The temperature during the mixing process starts at T equal to 0. By the end of the mixing process T equal to 10 seconds, it reaches the maximum value, which is not the value it should have achieved if there was no heat loss. So, the temperature is this value and what it should have been is this. So, if we can find out what this difference is, our job is actually done. And subsequently, let us see what happens. The temperature, instead of remaining constant as in the no heat loss case, in this case it is coming down. Of course, I have exaggerated again the rapidity with which it is coming down, and if you allow this to come down for a long time, it will eventually come to this value. Okay? It will cool down to the jacket temperature. So, now if you look at the cooling process, this is again governed by the same cooling relationship. Capital K into T minus T1 gives the temperature variation with respect to time, the derivative with respect to time. So, using this part of the process, I can in fact find out capital K. Capital K is nothing but the first order time constant of that system, which is getting cooled down. And if I can get the value of K from the cooling curve, I will have obtained the value of K, and that can be used in the earlier expression. Now, before we do that, let us also look at the expression we had an integral T minus T integral dt by dt. If you remember, there was an integral K multiplied by integral 0 to T minus T1 dt, and that can be obtained as the area under the curve during the mixed process. This is the curve, actually it is almost a straight line. So, the half of the base times the altitude gives the area under this curve, and that is going to give me the integral part. The k part is going to come from the cooling curve. So, let us go back to the board and look at this in more detail. So, during the mixing process we had the equation which is given here. During the subsequent cooling process, the left hand side is 0. Okay. So, we can say that during the cooling process, which is subsequent to the mixing process, which is complete, after that there is a cooling process, we can say that 0 must be equal to C dt by dt plus k into T minus T1. So, I can rewrite in the form of k equal to C dt by dt divided by T minus T1. So, during the cooling process, I will determine the slope of that line. So, if you remember, during the cooling process, this is what happened, this is what is happening, this is the cooling part, cooling part. So, if I choose any point here on this is the value of T, if I draw a line tangential, this is the slope, that is the slope, C is known, this is the calorimeter heat capacity, T value, if this is the value, this is the value, then we can estimate K from this. So, having estimated the K by using the slope of the cooling part at a point where the temperature is T, I use this expression and I substitute the slope of the cooling curve. Therefore, I get C into dt by dt divided by T minus T1 equal to K. This K is going to be used in the earlier expression. That means, here I am going to put that value of K. So, use estimated K. That means, I am going to use the estimated value of K here. This integral I have already indicated how to obtain from the rate at the initial mixing process, the temperature time data is there, find out the area under that curve, which is in this case, because it is almost linear increase in temperature, it is nothing but the half the base times the altitude. So, I can obtain this integral easily. The left hand side is Q, and now we have the, this is nothing but this integral multiplied by K is nothing but the loss, and if I go back to the earlier expression, I substitute for L here that the integral K multiplied by integral T minus T1, I put it here and I get the value of the specific heat of the glass beads in this particular problem. So, you see that in this problem what we have done is we have identified that there is a little bit of cooling, however well the experiment is performed, however carefully we do it, there is still some little bit of loss, and the effect of this loss is taken care of by looking at the cooling process, finding out the constant, cooling constant, using this cooling constant to estimate the loss during the mixing process, so that the value which we get is much better than it would be otherwise. So, let us work out the problem. The data was already given in the last class. So, all I am going to do is to work out very quickly. So, this is example 44. So, the data will become clear. Water equivalent of the calorimeter is given, of calorimeter is 0.5 kilogram. It is almost, it is like half a liter of water being heated. point of a kilogram of water being heated, and the specific heat of water is well known, is 4.19 kilojoule per kg degree Celsius, and therefore, C is nothing but the product of these two, 0.5 into 4.19, this will be kilojoules per degree Celsius, which is nothing but 2.095 kilojoule per degree Celsius. That is the capital C. The cooling data is already given in the problem, gives dt by dt, the rate at which the temperature is coming down is actually negative 0.2 degree Celsius per minute. So, I will convert it to 0.2 divided by 60 degree Celsius per second, which comes to 0.0033 degree Celsius per second. So, the cooling constant I can obtain, this is what we discussed a little while ago, this is your capital K, this will be C dt by dt, therefore 2.095 multiplied by 0.0033 divided by T minus T1. This data says that the T was 22.7 when the slope was calculated, this is minus 20, this will be your K, this comes to 0.00259 kilowatt per degree Celsius. So, kilowatts per degree Celsius. Now, all I have to do is to use the expression given earlier. So, the C of glass beads must be equal to C into T2 minus T1, this is the expression which we had written down earlier, plus loss divided by the mass of the glass beads multiplied by 33 minus T2. So, C, capital C is 2.095, T2 is 22.7 minus 20, plus the loss is nothing but K into that integral, K itself is given by 0.00259, and the integral is nothing but half the base into altitude, half the base into altitude 2.7 divided by the mass of the glass beads multiplied by the temperature change for that, that will be 150 grams or 0.15 kilograms multiplied by 80 minus 22.7. This gives a value of 662.662 kilojoules per kg degree Celsius or 662.2 joules per kg degree Celsius. This is the value. So, the glass beads, which is the solid taken in this particular case, has got about 662.2 kilojoules per kg or 62.2 joules per kg degree Celsius as the specific heat. So, to summarize this approach, the calorimeter is used to perform the mixing process, and also the subsequent cooling is used to determine the cooling constant, and this is used to correct for the heat losses which the calorimeter is subjected to. So, now let us look at the measurement of the heating value by two different methods. There are two cases I am going to take. The first one, the measurement of heating value of a gas, and the second one will be that of a solid. The principle of the calorimeters used in these two cases is no different from what we did in the case of specific heat. Only the thing is the heat liberation process is different. In the case of the specific heat determination, we preheat the sample and then dump it into the calorimeter to find out the heat, the temperature change, and then from that we get the specific heat. In the calorimeter we are going to talk about now, the heat release is taking place within the calorimeter itself, either in the continuous process as a continuous process or as a one time heat release process. Of course, again it will be subjected to subsequent cooling just as in the previous case. So, let us look at the two cases. The first one I take look at the continuous flow calorimeter. In this case I want to determine the heating value of a gaseous fuel. So, what is being done here is there are two components. One is the gas which is coming in, whose flow rate is measured by Venturi. As you can see here, the gas consists of a premixed mixture of gas and the oxidant. It may be in the form of oxygen or it may be in the form of air and the gas mixture. So, the gas into the calorimeter is actually the mixture of the gas whose calorific value or the heating value I want to determine, and the oxidizer in the form of oxygen or air, and its flow rate is measured as it enters the calorimeter, and it is burnt here in a burner, and the subsequently after complete combustion the burnt gases are going to be cooled by water which is flowing in the opposite direction. So, the burnt gases are going to go up like this and come down and then probably go out at the entrance exit here. The water which is used to cool the gases is going to enter and its temperature is measured, its flow rate is measured. As you can see here, it passes through all these tubes which are going to be removing the heat from the burnt gases or the products of combustion, and the water is going to move out through the exit here whose temperature is again measured. It goes through a rotometer so that the measurement of the flow can be done and the water is taken out, and the entire process takes place in a well insulated enclosure. The enclosure of course in this case is going to be having two roles. One is to prevent any damage to persons outside, because there is a chemical reaction taking place. We would not like the people to be in contact with the gases which are going to be generated, and secondly it also provides an insulation so that the entire process is adiabatic. Okay. So, in this case let us see what is going to happen. The gas and the oxygen mixture comes in, gets completely burnt, and it is cooled to as low a temperature, as close to the temperature to the room temperature as possible. That is why we have a elaborate cooling arrangement, so that the any water which is formed during the combustion process condenses and is in the form of a liquid rather than a vapor. Okay. Therefore, the heating value which we are going to measure is called the higher heating value, because the water vapor or the moisture which is formed during the combustion process is in the form of liquid. Secondly, if the temperature of the gas coming in and the temperature of the gas going out are very close to each other, that means there is not much of a temperature change from here to here, all the heat which is generated by combustion process is actually removed by the water. Of course, there may be a small temperature difference which can be used to correct for this. So, the continuous flow calorimeter has a continuous flow of certain mass flow rate of gas and oxygen mixture coming in here, and it has got a continuous flow of certain amount of water coming in at a temperature, lower temperature, and it moves out at a higher temperature, and similarly the gas comes in, the combustion takes place, the entire amount of heat is released and it goes out as a slightly higher temperature out of the system. So, all we have to do is to do energy balance, which simply the heat given up by the gas must be equal to the heat taken by the water, and by this balance we can find out what is the heat which is released by the combustion process. In fact, we can work out a very simple formula for that. So, let me go back to the board and work out a simple expression. So, let us assume that the mass flow rates of the gas is the mass flow rate which is measured by the Venturi, and the mass flow rate of water is measured by the rotometer in this particular experiment. Okay. So, the energy balance is very simple. I am measuring all the temperatures at entry and exit for both the streams. So, we will say the mass of the gas which is being burnt. So, I will say the gas multiplied by the heating value must be equal to the mass of the water multiplied by Cp for water multiplied by Tw at exit minus Tw at entry, this is for the water, plus the gas which is coming in at its own temperature, it goes out maybe at a slightly higher temperatures. So, what I can do is I will have to consider the products of combustion. So, mass of the product of combustion which will be again measured by the flow rate which is the same as mg multiplied by the Cp for that for the product of combustion multiplied by the T gas exit minus mg Cp for the before combustion multiplied by T g at entry. This may be different. So, all I want is heating value. So, that will be this entire thing on the right hand side. If I put a bracket like this divided by mg, I get the heating value for this. Of course, the mass of the gas consists of mass of fuel plus mass of air. So, here I have to clarify, this will be the fuel part only left hand side, we have to make that change here. So, if we do that, you get the heating value. This heating value is going to be in the units of so many joules per gram or kilojoules per kg or some such unit. Okay. So, let us go back to the second case, the more somewhat more difficult case. The principle is the same, but here there is no continuous flow, it is a one off process. So, what I have here is a bomb calorimeter. The schematic is shown, I have taken it from the manufacturer's catalog www.fire.testing.com. They manufacture this particular bomb calorimeter unit, and let us look at the schematic and understand the need for each one of the parts, and then look at the analysis of the bomb calorimeter. So, it actually consists of what is called a bomb. This is the bomb. Of course, it is not a bomb which is going to explode. It is called a bomb because it is going to contain the reaction which takes place when the solid fuel is going to burn. The products of combustion are going to be confined within that region. It is a vessel made up of either steel of a sufficient wall thickness, so that the pressure inside, which is usually of the order of 25 bars, it can withstand that pressure, and the essentially a reaction take place at that pressure. So, the calorimeter bomb has an arrangement by which I can put a small pellet of the solid fuel inside the bomb on a sample carrier, and I have an arrangement by which I can have a small fuse wire which is going to be in contact with it, and through which I am going to pass a current to initiate the combustion reaction. Okay, usually an iron wire is used and the wire itself is going to melt because of the high current which is going to go through that, and during this process it is going to generate enough heat, enough temperature to start the reaction. And the bomb is filled with, as I said, oxygen, pure oxygen at about 25 bars. The reason why we want to fill the bomb with high pressure oxygen is to see that the reaction is going to be complete. The combustion reaction is going to take place completely. That means that the entire specimen, the entire mass of the pellet which is taken inside is going to completely burn, and the combustion products are going to be formed from that. And the bomb itself is immersed in a, you see a vessel here. In this vessel we take water, about 2 liters of water is taken in this vessel, and this vessel is, there is a stirrer to make the temperature uniform in this vessel. It is well circulated, and there is a high precision thermometer which is immersed in that vessel, because that is a very important thing. The thermometer which is immersed in this water must be able to measure temperatures with a resolution of 0.01 or better. That means 0.01 degrees or better precision, better resolution is required for the thermometer. In this case I have shown a PRT. It could be, instead of PRT one could also use a thermistor, or one could use a precision thermometer with the mercury in glass. The range of the thermometer will be something from 15 degrees to 30 degrees, that is from almost room temperature to about 30 degrees, and it should be possible to measure a temperature change of 0.01 degrees Celsius during the heating process. During the combustion process, heat is released, the temperature is going to go up. I must be able to measure the temperature with to 0.01 at least. Okay. So the ignition is done by the leads shown here, and inside there is a wire. There will be a wire inside. I am not shown it here, but there is a wire. This wire is in intimate contact with the pellet, fuel pellet, which is whose calorific value or heating value I want to determine, and a suitable power supply is used to start the combustion process. And you also will see that outside the calorimetric vessel there is another vessel which we call as the jacket, which is filled with water which may be circulated, so the temperature remains constant throughout the experiment before and after the combustion process is initiated. That means that the temperature of the jacket is almost like constant, equal to the temperature before the experiment starts. The reason why we have a jacket here whose temperature is maintained constant is to prevent heat loss, and therefore I can consider the inside vessel plus the bomb plus whatever is kept inside the bomb, these undergo an adiabatic process. That means there is no heat transfer between the inner calorimeter and the outer jacket. This is the important thing to remember. So in this experiment what I am going to do is, there are two parts to this experiment. The first part, I am going to use a standard material. Usually in this, the standard material used is benzoic acid, whose calorific value or heating value has been accurately determined by various laboratories, and the value is available to us. So we will burn a certain small amount of benzoic acid, usually much less than 1 gram, typically maybe 0.1, 0.2 grams of the benzoic acid in the form of a small pellet like a tablet, and it is burnt completely in the first experiment after filling the bomb to about 25 bars of oxygen pressure inside, and inside the vessel, inside the bomb we also put a small amount of water, usually 1 cc of water is enough. This water will saturate the oxygen, and therefore, during the combustion process, whatever water is formed as a part of the combustion process is going to condense, and therefore, the water of combustion, water which is formed in the process of combustion is going to be condensed, and therefore, it is not in the form of vapor. That is the idea with which it is done. Therefore, we will get the what is so called higher heating value by using the bomb calorimeter. So, the experiment is very simple. You take the pellet inside with, in this case, the benzoic acid pellet, and then put it inside the thing, and then charge it to 25 bars, see that there are no leaks and so on, have the temperature recorded, and start the temperature of this, recording the temperature of the PRT or the thermistor or whatever instrument you are going to use, and then slowly after a few minutes you initiate the combustion. The combustion is initiated by passing a current through the wire for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then it will melt, and in fact when the inside the wire melts, the circuit will automatically break, and usually in the circuit a light is also a light bulb is also there in series, which is going to stop when the connection is lost, the illumination will stop, and therefore you know that the melting has taken place, and after a few minutes you will see that the temperature starts rising, and then it stops again and then becomes more or less constant, just as with in the specific heat calorimeter we had. So, in this case, during the process of combustion, certain amount of energy, internal energy has been released by the combustion process. So, that is the whole point, and because of this the calorimeter, temperature of the calorimeter goes up, and if we know the calorific value or the heating value of the fuel, in this case benzoic acid, I can use this as a calibration experiment to find out what is the capital C for the calorimeter. You remember the calorimeter we used earlier had a capital C, which is the mass specific heat product for the calorimeter. So, the first experiment using benzoic acid as a standard material is to determine the calorific the constant C for the calorimeter. In the subsequent experiment, I am going to use whatever fuel I want to get the heating value of the fuel. I can use that fuel in the form of pellet and repeat the experiment, and whatever C value I have determined in the first experiment, I am going to use as the C value for the second experiment, and therefore, I will obtain the unknown heating value in the second experiment. This is the basic idea. So, let us look at the kind of temperature data which we are going to obtain. The bomb calorimeter data is shown here. This is the temperature axis, this is the time in minutes. So, the record has been started at 0 minutes, and up to about 6 minutes or so there is no combustion, it is just the temperature is remaining constant, and this point the combustion process has been initiated, and the combustion is over very soon, and the temperature increases, and then it goes to a maximum value here, and then it starts again coming down because of the small amount of loss which may be in the system, just like what we had in the case of the calorimeter we discussed earlier. What is done now is we draw a line as is shown here and extrapolate like this, that is you draw it backwards like this, and you draw this forwards like this, and draw a vertical line such that the area under this curve here and the area under this curve is roughly equal. So, this is supposed to take care of the losses which may be there in the system. So, what you do is you see that this area and this area are roughly equal. So, draw this line such that these two are equal. This is the temperature difference I am going to take for the calculation. So, delta T for the calculation, which is going to be shown in a little while from now, is this value, this temperature difference, what I am going to take into account. Let me take an example, and then through that I will work out the details. So, we have taken example 45, it divided into two parts. The first part, a pellet of benzoic acid which weighs 0.103 grams. So, you realize that the weighing must be done very accurately with a balance which is capable of giving milligram accuracy 0.10 gram, 3 gram is burnt in a bomb calorimeter, and the temperature of the calorimeter increases by 22.17 degrees Celsius. This is the first experiment. So, what is the effective heat capacity of the calorimeter? That is determined from this part. In a subsequent experiment, the above calorimeter is used to determine the heating value of sugar. A pellet of sugar weighing 0.303 grams is burnt, and the corresponding temperature rise indicated by the calorimeter is 3.99 degrees Celsius. What is the heat of the combustion of sugar? These are the two parts of the problem. And let us look at some of the useful data or useful information. Benzoic acid has the molecular formula given by C7H6O2 and molecular mass of 122.12 grams per mole, and it has a heat of combustion of 3227 kilojoules per mole. This is known from literature. This is supposed to be accurately known. The case of sugar, which is the one which I am going to burn in the second experiment, it has a molecular formula C12H22O11 and a molecular mass of 342.3 grams per mole. This will be useful for solving the problem. Of course, the problem will be solved on the board. So, let us look at the solution to the problem. This will be example 45. What I will do is, the problem requires some background. We have to understand what we are trying to measure. So, I will provide the background as I go along and also solve the problem subsequently. So, usually a heat of combustion or heat of reaction, in general, combustion is a specific reaction where oxygen is going to combine with the fuel to provide the products of combustion. Heat of reaction, combustion means it is nothing but oxidation of the fuel. The definition is that the entire reaction should take place at a standard condition. The entire reaction should take place, or burning should take place under some specified standard condition. This is the definition. So, the idea is to obtain the value of the heat of reaction as close to this definition as possible. That is our goal. If you do not do that, of course, there will be some small differences between what you obtain in your calorimetric experiment and what is the heat of reaction for the particular reaction. There will be some small difference. These differences are to be ironed out or calculated so that we get the heat of reaction. So, what happens in the bomb? Well, let us look at the detail. In the bomb, we have, let me just show a box diagram. We have reactants. What are the reactants? The pellet of the fuel and the oxygen, which is the 20 bars or 25 bars. So, I will say P1 and T1. This is the condition, and this is the heat released in the calorimeter. I will call it delta U calorimeter. So, we have products at some P3 and some T2, that is the temperature at the end of the heating process, heat release process. The temperature goes up, that is the temperature. However, what I should have had is products at some P2 and T2. So, there is some pressure change which may have taken place during the calorimetric experiment. The products would have to be at P2 and T2, but there is some change. This is what I am going to get. The experiment is going to give this. What we need in according to definition, the reactants at P1 and T1, and they have to be converted to products at T1 itself. This is what we require. This is what is required. This is what we are going to get. So, how do we find out the difference between these two is the whole point of this discussion which I am giving. So, let us call this delta U at T1. This is the delta U with a, so this is the standard under standard conditions. This is what is happening in our case. So, in normal practice these two are almost equal. These two are almost equal. The effect of these quantities is not very severe. So, however, this difference is important. So, let us look at the way we are going to do that. So, the experiment is conducted totally adiabatically. Adiabatic experiment. So, the according to thermodynamics, the internal energy of the system must be constant. Change in the internal energy of the system equal to 0. Delta U equal to 0 for the system. The system is made up of two things. One, the products, the material which has burnt and become products, and the other part is actually the water which is surrounding that, and the vessel in which the experiment is performed. There is also some amount of heat released by the wire when it initiates the combustion reaction. For accurate determination, we have to take into account also that one. However, I will not introduce in this simple discussion because it is very straightforward, but it is not going to change the whatever we are discussing too much. It is just going to add a little small value to that. So, actually you can see that the change in there are two things, as I said, the reacting fuel which has undergone a change because of the reaction, and the rest of the vessel. So, I can say that C into T2 minus T1 is the heat gained by the calorimeter. This must be the same as the heat released by the fuel, equal to heat released by the fuel, because it is internal arrangement. There is no change in the internal energy of the entire system. It is just that the amount of heat released by the fuel during the process of combustion is simply shared by the calorimeter, heat released during the combustion process. So, of course, I know how much of the material I am burning, and therefore, I can write this expression as the mass of the fuel burnt multiplied by the heat of combustion for the material. That is what this is, and we know the mass. We know this from the experiment with benzoic acid. This T2 and T1 are measured by the experiment, and therefore, I will be able to determine the value of the heating value for the fuel. Let us take the first part of the problem. So, the part 1 will be benzoic acid combustion. So, we have the mass of the acid is 0.103 gram is burnt, and the temperature change is 2.17 degrees Celsius. So, this is the first part of the thing. So, we already know that the benzoic acid is given by C7H6O2. This is in the solid form, and the reaction can be written as C7 H6 O2, this is solid, plus I am going to have oxygen in the bomb, and there is enough oxygen so that the combustion is going to completely take place. To complete combustion is guaranteed. So, the amount of oxygen required for stoichiometry and the complete burning is given by 7.5 O2. This is in the gaseous form. After the combustion is over, you get 7 CO2 plus 3 H2O. This is in the liquid form. If you remember, this is in the gas form. This is in the liquid form because we have already saturated the oxygen to start with, so that it cannot hold any more water in the form of vapor, therefore it will condense. So, you see during this reaction we had 7.5 moles of oxygen and the number of moles of carbon dioxide formed is 7. Therefore, there is a change in the moles of the moles of gas. Because of this, some amount of energy is required or heat is required, and that we will have to take into account. So, that therefore, delta n, the change in the number of moles is 7 minus 7.5, that is a minus 0.5 mole. So, we can say that if you remember, PV is equal to nRT, that is the equation of state, and therefore, we can see that we also know that the delta E equal to delta H minus delta of PV, everything else remains constant, R is constant, T is temperature remains constant, only thing is N is changing. Therefore, this minus delta PV is nothing but PV multiplied by delta N, and PV is nothing but RT. Therefore, this will be delta N times RT. So, we can see that delta H minus N in delta N into RT. So, that gives you the relationship between the internal energy and the enthalpy. Okay? So, that is the part of the calculation. So, let us complete that. So, we can say that delta E will be delta H, the change in enthalpy, minus delta N is minus 0.5 into R, the universal gas constant is 8.3143 into 298, that is the temperature at which, standard temperature at which we are interested in calculating, and the delta H, because we are burning benzoic acid and we know that the heating value is already given to us. This is given as 3227 kilojoules per mole. This is for this will be a negative value because heat is released. This will become plus, this whole thing is going to be 0.5 into 8.3143 into 298. So, this comes to minus 3225.8 kilojoules per mole. This is actually in joules, this is in kilojoules, that is why you have to worry, you have to be clear. So, the heat released during the combustion of benzoic acid will be 0.103 gram is burnt. So, I have to calculate what is the number of moles, that will be divided by the molecular weight 122.12, which was already given in the slide, multiplied by 3225.8, this will be in kilojoules, and this comes to 2.721 kilojoules. This is the heat released in the first experiment. This must be equal to C into delta T. Therefore, C will be equal to 2.721 divided by delta T is nothing but 2.17, and therefore, this comes to 1.254 kilojoule per degree centigrade. This is the value in the obtained from the first experiment for the calorimeter constant C. So, the experiment number 2, I am going to have sugar whose formula is given by C12 H22 O11, and I already gave the molecular weight as 342.3. This is the molecular mass, and the data gives the amount of temperature change. Temperature change is 3.984 degrees Celsius. The same calorimeter is used. Therefore, the capital C is the one which is found in the previous experiment. You will also notice that in the case of sugar, there is no change in the moles. The number of moles of the gas is equal to oxygen. On the right hand side, I am going to get CO2. They are the same number. There is no delta N. Delta N is 0. Therefore, whatever heating value you obtain automatically is also the heating, the enthalpy and the energy. There is no difference in those two quantities. Therefore, I do not have to worry about that. So, we will say that delta N equal to 0. You can work it out by writing the stoichiometry for this particular case, finding that the oxygen number of moles of the gas in the beginning and the end are exactly the same. So, we will look at the 1 mole will be 342.3 grams, and the amount of burnt is 3.303 divided by 342.3. This is the number of moles of the sugar, which will be nothing but 0.000885 mole burned, and delta T is given. C is equal to 1 point. We already determined the previous case. Let us go back and look at that. It will be 1.254 kilojoules per degree Celsius, and therefore, with this value I can find out what is the heat gained by the calorimeter Q is equal to C delta T 1.254 from the previous value multiplied by 3.984. This will give you 4.995 kilojoules. So, this must be equal to the mass, the moles of the fuel burnt multiplied by the heat of reaction, and therefore, so heat of reaction equal to this divided by the number of moles, which is given by 0.000885. So, this gives you a value of 5646 kilojoule per mole. This is in fact the heating value of sugar. So, an interesting example, sugar in the form of a pellet is taken, burnt in the calorimeter, and we can determine the calorific value. In engineering practice, we will call it the calorific value. In physical chemistry and or in the case of physics, they would refer to it as the heat of reaction. It is one of the same. Engineers, mechanical engineers use the term calorific value more often, and therefore, you can say that the calorific value of sugar is about 5.65 kilojoules per mole of sugar. So, this is the example. We will stop here for today. Thank you. Thank you.